Hey everybody, it's Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com. I have two new exciting blacked out accessories that upgrade your Vespa GTS with, whether you have an old 2006 or even a GT200 from 2004, all the way up to the latest HPE engine equipped GTS 300 Super Sport. You can put these parts right on, they fit on no problem. First of all, I got the MG Biketec fully adjustable levers. Really nice. They kind of got a dog lever feel to them. They come in both a short and a long version. The pair that are installed here are the long version. The short version are more of a two-finger style brake lever, which may be appealing to you. Look in the description of this video for all the part numbers for these. And lastly, we'll finish it off with these wonderful Zelioni weighted bar ends. So they're the extra large size bar end like you'd find with the top case of a Vespa GTS. The extra weight isolates some of the vibration through the handlebars, but the cool feature is they have this thread-on cap on the end that finishes it off very nicely versus having an exposed fastener. So you just need some standard basic tools that you find in a home workshop. Flat and Phillips screwdrivers. For the newer scooters, you're gonna have Torx drivers, T25 and T30. You need a 10mm combination wrench, and to remove the bar ends, you'll need an Allen fastener. I got a 4 and a 5mm Allen fastener. You can get any of that stuff pretty easily locally. So on this 2020 Vespa, most important part is you got to dismantle the front handlebar covers to gain access to the lever pivots. I'm always recommend taking off the front horn cover. It is possible to dismantle the front without taking the horn cover off, but it certainly makes the job easier. You can see I pried the badge off from the left side very carefully with a flat bladed screwdriver. Remove the single fastener holding the horn cover on. Keep track of that fastener because it's different than some of the other fasteners that we'll be removing. And just carefully pull the whole cover right off, and it's got 3 clips that retain it. This is only found on the 2020 and later, or the HPE equipped GTSs, so a little different than if you have an earlier GTS. And right in the center is a single fastener T25 Torx. If you got an older model, maybe just a Phillips screw in there. And I have my other index finger ready to catch a screw, because the last thing you want to have is it drop down into the frame. A couple of other ways to accomplish capturing the screw is put grease on the tip of your the driver tip, or even have a magnetized screwdriver before you extract the screw. Both the left and right side, you'll need a number 1, which is a smaller size Phillips driver, and go ahead and remove the single fastener located on both sides. Keep in mind it does have a small washer. Go ahead and pull the handlebar cover. Start from the side. You can reach into the hole and actuate this little tab to release the lock-in tab, and just kind of work your way across, and then you'll be able to easily remove the handlebar cover. Single connector back there, whether it's got an incandescent bulb, go ahead and separate it, or the LED headlight, separate it from the headlight assembly. So in order to remove the lever, you need a flat bladed screwdriver and also a 10mm wrench. This side's a little harder because you do have the throttle cable in the way. It does move out of the way down, so go ahead and remove the nut, which is the locking nut for the lever pivot, and extract the screw, and keep your hand on the lever, because if you pull the screw out, the levers may fall out. Keep in mind there's a pair of washers that will fall out as well. So when you remove the lever, you have 3 pieces to it. I'd put a small amount of grease on all these pivot pieces, and also this heel that acts on the brake piston. So the way this goes together, just before we slip it all together, the nice thing about these levers, they are symmetrical, so you use a left or a right side, it doesn't really matter. You gotta get that spring in place before you install it. And take extra precaution, because otherwise that spring may go all the way across the room. Best to have this as far in as possible. Makes the job a little easier, so towards the minus where that little pin retracts into the lever. And we're gonna go ahead and set the steel washers. I'll use a little grease and put this all together before we slip this into the master cylinder. So a small amount of grease on both sides here, a little bit of grease on that heel, and slip that into that little spot. Take the washer and the back side of the washer, just put a dab of grease. Go ahead and set that on the lever. Go and flip the lever. The nice thing about the grease, it kind of holds everything together. So a small amount of grease and drop the other washer in place. The last thing is the spring, which is kind of the difficult task of this whole project. Go ahead and set that. If you want to pack that with a little grease, I want to kind of keep it clean looking. So I'm not going to put grease in there. So this is the trickiest part of the whole install. I'm using a single hand to kind of hold all the pieces together, including this little spring. Of course, if you put a little more grease on there, it might hold it all together. I'm using my other hand as I'm pushing the lever in to kind of keep the spring from wanting to pop out. And then while I'm doing that, I'm eyeballing the top, just get everything to line up so I could send the bolt through. So the bolt isn't gonna wanna line up perfectly. It does thread. So go ahead and thread as far as you can by hand, and it's gonna stop. And now at this point, you're gonna need to move the lever around a little bit, and you may need to move that heel around a little bit so the full shoulder of this pivot bolt goes all the way through. So go ahead and go all the way down, bottom it out, no problem there. And now we can install the lock nut in place. And I'll show you how these levers all work. And I still have a stock lever in place so I can show you the difference between the pair of these levers here. Return your throttle cable back to its original position. Installing the other side is absolutely identical, other than the springs on the top, which makes it a little easier. It's just a little bit more difficult side. So at the negative setting, the lowest setting, you can see the levers much closer to the grip. That may be the look and the feel you want versus the stock non-adjustable lever where it's always pretty far away from the grip. Alternatively, you can add quite a bit to it. The way you do that is tip the lever forward and go ahead and roll this detent lever towards the positive. And of course you get adjustability all the way up to the most to the least. And at the highest setting, you can see the lever is further away compared to a stock lever. So ideally, you'd find a perfect adjustment for you. You get both levers adjusted so they have equal feel. That's typically a good adjustment for the levers, but it's all personal preference. Now you have the full adjustability of your levers. So while we're at it, we're gonna go ahead and change the bar ends. You may also want to change your grips at this time as well, but I'm not gonna do that on this scooter. If you have an older scooter, anything 2019 older, it's gonna be a 4mm Allen. Don't be fooled because of 2020, the Allen will fit in there, but it's not the correct fastener. If you have the newer scooter, you're gonna need the T30 Torx driver. And typically the way you want to loosen these is kind of turn the bar end as you kind of unthread the bar end along with the Allen fastener, or the Torx fastener in this case. Pretty easy to strip this out and pull the standard bar end right off. So before you install this bar end, you do want to look at your orientation of this Zelioni logo, because if you just put it wherever, it may not line up. So I'm holding the bar end in place. And go ahead and take one of the included fasteners, insert, and then you'll need a 5mm Allen. And if you like, you can put Loctite on the screw. Typically, if it's just tight and tight, not really an issue. And like I suggested, it'd be a good idea to put a small amount of silicone sealant or a very, very small dab of Loctite on there just to keep this in place. Go ahead and thread that beauty cap on. So thanks for watching. Hope you found it interesting. Gave you some tips on how to install these levers. They're a little tricky to install if you've never installed them in the past. The written instructions with the levers doesn't really give you much feedback. If you're interested in these products, look in the description of this video and we have hot links to the items on our web store, scooterwest.com. Thanks again for watching. This is Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and scooterwest.com. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to get my weekly videos, always pertaining to parts, accessories, and repairs, and some ride videos, all on Vespas for the most part. Thanks again. Stay safe, keep on riding. Robot here for Vespa Motorsport and scooterwest.com in San Diego, California.